Welcome to Lecture 1.4, Multiplication with Negative Numbers. So let's take a step back and think about two positive numbers. And if you remember, multiplication is the shorthand of addition. So for example, 3 times 5 means 3 5s. 5 plus 5 plus 5, which would be 15. But when we think about negative numbers, one positive number and one negative number, for example, positive 3 times negative 5, I can still write it as addition. Negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5. And if we remember our rules of addition to negative numbers, I just add the numbers, 5, 10, 15, I have 15, and I keep the sign, so it's negative, negative 15. What if we have one negative number and one positive number? For example, negative 3 times 5. For multiplication, we have our commutative property, which means I can change the order and it doesn't change anything. So I can rewrite the negative times a positive as a positive times a negative. So it means 5 negative 3s. Negative 3 plus negative 3 plus negative 3 plus negative 3 plus negative 3. I think I said it 5 times. Anyway, then if we follow our rules for adding negative numbers, they're all the same sign, so I just add the 3's. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 3 is 9, plus 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15, and keep the sign, so it's negative. Now here, what about two negative numbers? Negative 3 times negative 5. I'm going to use this first negative to mean the opposite. So the opposite of negative 5, the opposite of negative 5, the opposite of negative 5. And if we have the opposite of negative 5, the opposite of negative 5, the opposite of negative 5, that means 5 plus 5 plus 5, which is 15, a positive 15. Now here are some rules that we can follow. If we have two positive numbers and we multiply the two numbers, our result will be positive. If we multiply two negative numbers, our result will be positive. If we have one positive number and we multiply it to one negative number, our result is negative. If we have one negative number and we multiply it by one positive, our result is negative. Now you may be asking, what happens if I have 3 negative numbers or 4 negative numbers? Well, there's even a nice way of figuring out if your result is going to be positive or negative. It depends on the number of negatives that you have in your equation or your expression. If you have an even number of negatives, your result will be positive. Think of it like this. Let's say I have 4 negative numbers. I don't even care what the negative numbers are. Let's say they're all 2's. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Times negative 2 is negative 8. Times positive 2 is positive 16. So 4 negatives gave us a positive result. So even number of negatives will give positive result. What about an odd number of negatives? Let's say we have one more negative 2. So we have negative 2 times negative 2 gives us positive 4. Times negative 2 gives us negative 8. Times negative 2 gives us positive 16. Times negative 2 gives us negative 32. The result will be negative. So if we have odd number of negatives, our results will be negative. So let's go through a couple examples. Negative 8 times negative 3. Well, I can just do the math. Let's say 8 times 3 is 24, but I have 2 negatives. That's an even number of negatives, so my result is positive. And just for emphasis, I'm going to put a positive sign there. Let's try 5 times negative 7. First, I'm going to do the multiplication of 5 times 7 is 35. I have an odd number of negatives. Since I only have one, that's an odd number. So it is negative 35. Let's try negative 5 times negative 3 times negative 4. I'm going to jump to see if I have a positive or a negative result. I have 1, 2, 3 negatives. 3 is an odd number, so I know whatever my result is, it's going to be negative. So I'm going to take care of my sign right now. Now I just need to worry about what's 5 times 3 is 15, times 4 is 60. So my answer is negative 60. Let's try one more. Let me take care of my sign first. I have 2 negatives, so my result is going to be a positive, whatever it is. 4 times 5 is 20, times 3 is 60, times 2 is 120. When we expand expressions, when we have exponents, we have to be careful about where the parenthesis is. Let's take an example. The negative 6 is in parentheses, so the squaring happens to the whole entire negative 6. So I'm going to expand this problem as negative 6 times negative 6. I have 2 negatives. My result will be positive because it's an even number of negative numbers. So my solution is 36. But if I don't have any parentheses, this squaring is only touching the 6. It is not touching the whole thing. So my result is going to be a negative 6 times 6. I have 1 negative, so my result is negative 36. Okay, let's look at this again. Negative 4 is in parentheses, negative 4 cubed. Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. I have 3 negatives, which is an odd number of negatives, so my result, whatever it is going to be negative. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. Now let's try negative 4 cubed. The negative is not involved, so I keep the negative. Now it's 4 times 4 times 4. And that is negative 64. Okay. Same result, but it is not the same math. When it is negative 4 cubed, it is negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. If it is negative 4 cubed, it is negative 4 times 4 times 4. It's very subtle, but it is different, even though our result was the same. Now let's talk about order of operation. Let's practice. When it's order of operation, we do what's inside the parentheses first, then exponents, then multiplication division from left to right, and adding and subtracting left to right. Let's do the parentheses first. So negative 6 plus 2, they're opposite signs, so we take the difference and keep the sign of the larger. So 6 minus 2 is 4, and 6 is larger than 2, so it is a negative 4. I'm going to write out the whole entire problem so I don't forget a step. Multiplication next. 5 times a negative 4. There's an odd number of negatives, so our solution to this smaller problem of 5 times negative 4 is going to be negative. We have negative 4 plus a negative 20. They're the same sign for addition, so we keep the sign, add the two values together, we get a negative 24 as our final solution. Let's try another problem. Again, we do parentheses first. 2 minus 9, they're opposite sign, so we take the difference, which is 7, keep the sign of the larger, which is negative. going to bring down that -3. Parentheses is -7 minus 2, or we can think of it as -7 plus -2. They're the same sign, so our end is -9. Got to remember to multiply it by 4. Now we have multiplication. -3 times a -7, an even number of negatives. So our result is going to be positive. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times -9, odd number of negatives, so our result is negative. 4 times 9 is 36. Now we have opposite signs, so we take the difference. 36 minus 21 is 15. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is the 36. Our solution is -15. Try one more. I'm going to do this quickly. -2 minus 8 is -10. Times -5, -5. 6 minus 10 is -4. -5 times -10 is positive 50. -4 times -4 is positive 16. Our solution is 66. Let's think about this problem. A hot air balloon is rising to its cruising altitude. For every 1,000 feet it rises, the temperature drops 4 degrees. So if we go from 2,000 feet to 6,000 feet, what is the net change in temperature? So let's figure out what the difference between the high altitude of 6,000 feet minus 2,000, our starting, that will give us how many feet we rose. We rose 4,000 feet. For every 1,000 feet, the degree drops 4 degrees. So how many 1,000 feet we went up? 4 divided by 1,000 equals 4. So we went 4 times up, and the temperature drops 4 degrees every 1,000 feet. So our net change, the temperature dropped 16 degrees. Now if you're into baseball and you know what a relief pitcher is, apparently there's something called a Relief Man Award of the Year, and here are the points. If the relief pitcher wins, it's 2 points. A save is 3 points. A tough save is 4 points. A loss is -2 points, and a blown save is 2 points. If someone gets 4 wins, 2 losses, 8 saves, 1 tough save, and 3 blown saves, how many points do they earn? So 4 wins, 4 times 2, plus 2 losses, which is 2 times -2, plus 8 saves, 8 times 3, plus 1 tough save, 1 times 4, plus 3 blown saves, 3 times -2. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times -2 is -4. 8 times 3 is 24. 1 times 4 is 4. And 3 times -2 is -6. Now I'm going to combine all of these. 8 plus -4 is 4. Plus 24 plus 4 plus -6. 4 plus 24 is 28 plus 4 plus -6. 28 plus 4 is 32 plus -6. And last, 32 plus -6 is 26 points they've earned. So that's it for this video. So until later, be seeing you.